Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wednesday, August 26th meeting of the Lebanon Community Development Corporation. Please note tonight that I will call us to order, and from a roll call standpoint, all members are present. First up on the agenda here, we have an election of officers. So we did have a vacation on the commission, so we're looking to nominate a vice president this evening. And with that, I would actually nominate Missy Krulik as vice president. And a second from Allie. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Vice President.
Thank you.
I do not see any old business on the agenda, so we'll move straight into new business. Mr. Ben Bontrager has quite a bit of information for us tonight, so we're going to begin first with a resolution 2020-01, which is in reference to the former Estes property.
Well, very good. All the items tonight are all related to the same project. Those of you who are familiar, the Brakeman Building project, Forza Commercial Real Estate, we've been working with them for a couple years now to get this project put together, and it's kind of coming to its culmination here in the next couple of weeks. This is the first step for the CDC tonight. This resolution, this is associated with both the east and west sides of the road, the former Estes property just around the corner here on South Lebanon Street. The Redevelopment Commission purchased this property about 2.5 years ago when it came up for sale, really just to buy the property as an investment property, so the city and the Redevelopment Commission have the ability to determine what happened to that property in the future for redevelopment or reinvestment or otherwise. At this point in time, we've identified a developer who's willing to put a project on the site that we're supportive of and excited about. And to facilitate the project, the Redevelopment Commission is transferring ownership of the property to the CDC to facilitate some of the additional project items that we'll talk about here in a second, the project agreement. So the Redevelopment Commission with two separate resolutions has approved the transfer of both the east and west sides of the road to the CDC. So this resolution tonight is just indicating that the CDC is accepting that property transfer from the Redevelopment Commission.
Very cool. So the first step here is pretty straightforward. Any questions? Okay, so with that, I would entertain a motion on resolution 2020-01, accepting the transfer of real property. Rob, do we need to read that into the record?
Yeah, we can. Sure. It's all right, Commission, this is resolution 2020-01, and again, as Mr. Bontrager said, it's accepting the transfer of the real property. And the Lebanon Community Development Corporation is a nonprofit organization pursuant to Indiana Code. It is a neighborhood development corporation. Forza Commercial Real Estate is a limited liability company, and the RDC understands that the CDC and the developer and one or more of its affiliate intends to develop a mixed-use multifamily project on certain real estate located on East Elm Street, South Lebanon Street, West South Street, and Southwest Street. And again, the RDC owns the west building site, which is described on Exhibit A, and it also owns the east building site described on Exhibit B. And this is all within the district for purposes of Section 12.2A25 of the Act, and it has RDC has previously determined on August 12, 2019, under Resolution 2019, it's in the best interest of the RDC to grant to the CDC the west side for developing the project as authorized under the Act, as well as under Resolution 2020-03 to grant to the CDC the east side for the purposes of developing the project. So wherefore, the CDC will accept the RDC's grant of the RDC real estate, and it will execute and deliver such other agreements, instruments, and other documents to perform such other actions in connection with the grant of the real estate. The CDC shall also authorize the president of the CDC and advice of council to execute any and all documents, as well as through the president, the vice president, or secretary of the CDC, And the President of the CDC is authorized to execute and deliver all such other agreements to accomplish this task.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Rob. So with that, now I would entertain a motion on Resolution 2020-01.
I make a motion that we accept Resolution 2021-01 of transferring of the real property, the former Estes property, to the CDC.
All right, we've got
Second.
a motion from Missy and a second from Ally. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. That moves us to Agenda Item B, which is the consideration for the Brakeman Building Project Agreement.
All right, this isn't quite as easy of a description as the first one, so this is a little bit more complex here, there's a lot more moving parts. This is a project agreement we've been working on for probably about 9 months now, getting all the pieces and parts put together. It's been reviewed and massaged 5 or 6 or 7 different times, but the gist of this from the CDC's perspective, one, that your ownership of the property, which we just approved, and then two, the second piece of that is then that you will sell the west side project site to Forza Commercial Real Estate for an agreed upon appraised price of $320,000. That's already in the works. We had it appraised last year and it's part of the agreement. So you will sell the west project site, you will retain ownership of the east project site, but give Forza permission essentially to use it for their parking. The reason we wanted to retain ownership is because the goal here is not for that to be a parking lot forever. The goal here is to redevelop that site as well sometime in the future. And so what this agreement sets up then is the terms associated with that. So essentially, Forza has an option for a period of time on that property, option to purchase. Once that option expires, then they have for a period of time a first right of refusal, which basically means if we get another offer, they have an option to basically to step in and say, no, we're going to go ahead and buy that now. And once that period expires, then the CDC would have the ability to sell it and develop it with anybody they see fit. So it does really set it aside for Forza to step in and develop that, and hopefully the first phase of the project goes great, and 3 years from now we're talking about how they're going to develop the east side of the road. But if for some reason that doesn't work out after a period of time, we do have, the CDC has the ability to work with another developer or investor to develop the east side of the road. As part of that though, then the city has to come up with a parking solution elsewhere for the west side project site, because we'd be taking away their parking. So we don't have a solution for that right now, but that'll be something that'll have to be part of the discussion once the east side becomes part of a development discussion. So that in terms of the property is how the CDC would be involved. In terms of then the actual project moving forward, there's 2 components that the CDC will be involved with. One is that $320,000 purchase. The revenue from that purchase will be reinvested back into qualified expenses related to the property. So that's either construction of parking lot, construction of utilities, construction of sidewalks, etc. That money is going to be reinvested back into the project. The developer will be submitting invoices that we'll have to approve as qualified expenses, and they'll get reimbursed after they've made those expenses from that $320,000. So that's the first in terms of the financial commitments from the CDC. That's the first part of it. The second piece of it, and this is the bigger piece, as you may recall, some of you are on the redevelopment commission, this is in the TIF district, the city's TIF district. We're going to carve out a separate allocation area specific to this project site, such that as they develop and there's increment created, the TIF increment that's generated by this project will go into a separate pot to be reinvested in this project as well. And how that's going to work is that the redevelopment commission has already approved a resolution that says that they will grant the increment from the project to the CDC. So each year they will grant that amount. I think it's about $143,000 and change to the CDC. And what the CDC's responsibility then is to go out and secure a bank loan of $2.1 million. We've actually already got those terms put together with State Bank of Lisbon. That money then will again be used for qualified expenses of the project. You will receive those $143,000 and change from the redevelopment commission in order to make those annual payments on that loan for a period of 25 years. So essentially, there's no money coming out of your pocket. There's money coming in and then getting reinvested in the project. So the project pays for itself all the way through. So that's the second piece of it. That's a big piece, but those are the components related to that. The third piece then is a commitment to demolish the Estes building to facilitate construction of the parking lot. And we have money in the planning department budget that we've been set aside to pay for that demolition. And actually, the last item on your agenda tonight is to consider the 3 estimates that we received for that demolition and get that approved so we can get that underway after tonight. So money is already set aside for that. Again, not money coming out of the CDC bank account, which there's not much money in the account right now anyway. But that's the 3rd commitment from the CDC. And then in terms of overall oversight of the project, that'll come from city staff, making sure all the pieces and components are all in place as it goes forward, overseeing the development, making sure everything's done in a timely fashion. CDC doesn't have any full-time staff, so we'll commit to doing that for you. And in fact, the city is party to this agreement as well. And in terms of the commitments on the city side, it's primarily administrative, overseeing the project development. So the timing, the hope here is that we close on this on October 1st, and that would be both the bank loan and the developer is committing also to secure their loan for construction. They have their bank in place. They've got their investors in place. They are ready to go. So we're hoping by October you're seeing the Estes building start to come down. We've got to obviously get our IDEM permits and probably permits from NDOT to close the sidewalk for safety reasons. We should have all those approvals in the next month or so. So you'll see activity on that building demolition happens hopefully soon after that. And then we'll work with Forza on exactly when they'll be starting, but I think they're planning on beginning demolition and construction yet this fall and into winter time. So it's about an 18-month construction schedule, but we'll start seeing some activity yet this fall on that. They've got everything in place. So these are the last few things, getting this project agreement approved and then getting all the documentation put together on the bank loan, et cetera, to get that going. And then this project will be ready to go. 2 years in the making, but I think we've got everything, all the I's dotted and T's crossed, and that's the commitments in terms of the CDC, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ben. So just to go over a couple of quick things, Ally, I know you're new to the commission. The CDC is not an income generator or a revenue generator, excuse me. So that's why part of this includes that $143,000. The RDC has allowed that to be a pass-through to the CDC. That's going to cover any expenses related to the bank loan. So that's where those numbers specifically came from. Ben alluded to the small amount of funds in the pocket, so that was actually related to a property sale the beginning of this year. So pretty small amount in there, like Ben said. So with that, any questions from the commission for Ben?
Do we have an estimate on what the closing costs are with the State Bank of Lisbon?
I don't have any detail in terms of the bank loan. I think they're incorporated into the overall loan.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and look at the documentation. In fact, they're updating it because I know the interest rates have changed since the last time, and the bank does have to go back to their executive committee to approve the loan again because that had expired. My understanding that was going to be taking place very soon. So we'll have updated interest rate and closing costs, but they're just going to roll those into the loan. And my understanding is we're expecting the interest rate to have improved from 4, 5, 6 months ago. So that may mean that our annual payment is a little bit less, or we're able to borrow just a tad bit more just to have some cover.
Perfect. One question in regards to the parking. I believe, in my understanding, so you mentioned the west side was going to have to reevaluate parking if the east side were developed. The verbiage in this project agreement states that, correct?
Yes, yes.
So part of this project agreement does say that if they go on to develop on the east side, they have to work with the city of Lebanon on a parking plan, so we don't get ourselves into a situation where the east side cannibalizes all of the west side's parking and there's no repercussion, basically. So that is addressed in the project agreement. Any other questions? All right, and then Rob, I believe, so in any motion, we would be looking for authorization for me as the president to sign. So I'll open it for any motions. If you could include in your motion authorization for me as the president of the CDC to sign on behalf.
I make a motion for Corey to be able to sign the authorization needed to make the project move forward.
And just approve the execution
And approve,
of the
yes,
project?
and approve the execution of the project.
Perfect. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And on to Part C here, which is dealing with the demolition piece of the former Estes property. So this would be in reference to the east side, correct?
Correct. Yes, we're talking about the former Estes structure on the east side of the road. We did go out and get 3 different estimates. Actually, I take that back. The contractor, the general contractor for the developer, had a demolition contractor provide an estimate to them that met the scope that they needed in order to facilitate the construction of the parking lot. And that would be the one in your packet from Denny Companies. That's why it's addressed to Worcester Construction as opposed to the City of Lebanon. So they did provide for Worcester Construction the scope necessary to facilitate the parking lot construction and also their estimate. They did provide that estimate to us, and then we used their scope and sent that out to 2 additional contractors to at least get a couple of additional proposals to consider. And we got responses from H&D Removal and from W Enterprises. So the 3 we have, all the same scope, are from H&D Removal for $83,565, from Denny Companies for $95,000, and for W Enterprises LLC for $123,620. So I would recommend to the CDC that they approve the demolition proposal from H&D Removal for $83,565. I was communicating with Missy earlier today. She was interested in trying to save the date, the stone on the front that has the date of construction of the original building. So I would just suggest maybe in your motion that you consider the addition of, in the scope, saving that piece and providing that to the city. Any questions?
I do have a question on the 3rd proposal from W Enterprises. They have a bottom part that mentions compaction testing for an additional cost of $1,500. Is that anything we need to look at? And then also, they all mentioned that we're assuming the water is clean in the basement. Is that a safe assumption to make?
We've done all the environmental testing necessary on the site. Yeah, we actually did that before we purchased the property. That basement, of course, is wet because there's no electricity, so there's no sump pumps running. And actually, I think it was wet even when Estes was still occupying the building, in fact. So we haven't done any recent testing of that water, but we did do some environmental testing before we purchased, and the site was about as clean as you'd expect from a former dealership. There are some restrictions on use of groundwater for watering gardens and for drinking water, which we don't expect to do anyway, but there were no other environmental restrictions. One thing I did mention, Missy asked this earlier, and I mentioned a little bit, we do have the funding in the planning department budget to demo this, so we'd be ready to go as soon as we get all our permits in place. Our contractor is going to get the appropriate permit from IDEM. We'll have to work to likely get a permit from NDOT so we can close the sidewalk for safety purposes. And at that point, then we're just getting all the utilities disconnected and removed, so we should be about a month out or so from starting the demo.
All right. And can the name of the company you suggested?
Yeah, H&D Removal, and their proposal is $83,565.
Okay. Any other questions for Ben? All right. So we'd be looking for a motion. Now, on this one, it would be to accept the proposal from H&D Removal at the amount of $83,565, and also adding to the scope a salvage of the date from the facade of the building. So if anyone wants to motion, you can go with so moved. Since I spelled it out pretty good.
So moved.
So moved.
All right, so we've got a motion from Missy and a second from Ally. So on that, I would, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So the motion carries. Okay, so I think we got quite a bit of work done here, Ben.
Yes, yeah. It was only a 20-minute meeting, but the time that got into getting this was extensive, and we appreciate your support for this project.
Yeah, it wasn't 20 minutes to get to this meeting, huh?
No, it's more like 2 years, a lot of hard work, but we're really excited about this project and looking forward to seeing this moving forward in the next few months.
Absolutely. All right, well, that takes care of all the new business that I see on our agenda. Anything the members would like to bring up? And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion from Missy, second from Ally. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.